The land must be divided in 3. You will take 1/3.
Divide it? Into 3?
Hello there, and welcome to this showcase of Ancient Warriors, a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that is aiming to blind second and just win through sheer force alone. It's a great fun deck. If you've enjoyed playing Tenpai, which I certainly didn't, I made Tenpai in Master Duel and then dismantled it after I climbed really high with it because I just found it dreadfully boring. You might enjoy this kind of deck. It's again a very powerful high ceiling deck, but it is very different from Tenpai in that it invests most of its strength in the main deck monsters, and it has a lot more kind of intricacies. It's also a lot worse. I'll be honest with you, this is not a S tier or even really a rogue deck. It's sort of somewhere below rogue. It's a fun deck to play with, but that being said, I've climbed quite frequently to diamond rank with this deck. Not much further beyond that, but then often that's just a time restraint for me more than anything. So with that introduction out the way, what I'll do is I'll go through the deck card by card, and then we'll look at some replays just to showcase how the deck works. So let's start with the non-engine just to go through it. In this deck variant, we're going to be running triple maxi, only 2 Ash so that it doesn't conflict too much with Lu Bu. We want to try and avoid as much monster effect as possible on Ancient Warriors. We're running 1 Raigeki, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Lightning Storm, triple tactics talent, 3 Ultimate Slayer. This is kind of a very flexible slot in the deck, but this is how I've built my version of the deck, as there's a lot of room in the extra deck to have fun with this. So Ultimate Slayer is what I'm using here. 1 triple tactics thrust, and then we have Tenki, which is sort of part of the engine really, and 2 Forbidden Droplet. In the extra for the Ultimate Slayer, we have Entis, Garura, Wind Pegasus Atignista, Psy-Frame Lord Omega, Myriologic Aggregator, and Tri-Brigade Ferrigite. Notably with Ultimate Slayer, you do have to be careful about triggering monster effects as well, because that will lock you out of Lu Feng's pop. But usually if you've triggered Ultimate Slayer, you're not too worried about removing yet another monster. So let's go into detail with the rest of the deck then. We have the beating heart of the deck, Sun Mu. While you control another Ancient Warriors monster, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. You can only use each of the following once per turn. You can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, add 1 Ancient Warriors monster from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Warriors Masterful Sun Mu. And if your other Ancient Warriors monster effect is activated, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. So this is our ideal normal summon. A lot of these are level 4s, and we want to make sure that we're summoning this and searching. The main theme of this deck really is that you've got monsters that perform one sort of like engine bonus, like searching or summoning or specialing from the hand, and then their secondary effect will be to bounce or to pop or to negate or to do something active, because they are in effect the board breakers that you want to be bringing in this deck. So Sun Mu is our most powerful starter. We run him at 3. Zhou Gong, his lesser sibling, we run at 1. You can target 1 continuous spell trap you control, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, add 1 Ancient Warrior spell trap from your deck to your hand. If your other Ancient Warriors monster's effect is activated, except during the damage step, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate the effect until the end of this turn. It's just an extra name really. We want more normal summon targets, and this guy does come up occasionally, allows you to cycle between your various Ancient Warriors spell traps. We run only 2 Liu Zhan. I prefer 2 just so that there's a little bit more space for the extra Zhuge Kong and this guy, but Liu Zhan benefits from what a lot of the Wind Ancient Warriors do in this deck, which is a kind of outnumbered mechanic. So if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon 1 Ancient Warriors monster from your deck, except Ancient Warriors Liu Zhan, and when an attack is declared involving another Ancient Warriors monster you control, you can draw 1 card. Nice little bonus there. The first effect on it also is a little bonus, doesn't really come up because we're aiming to blind second and win in turn 2. While you control another Ancient Warriors monster, your opponent's monster cannot target this card for attacks. Really, it's the summon that you want from him. We have 2 Zhuge Kong. This guy is part of your extension. He's part of your sort of basic combo line. If this card is added from the deck to your hand by the effect of an Ancient Warriors card, you can special summon it. So he is a poplar. When a spell trap is activated, you can quick effect send an Ancient Warriors continuous spell trap you control to the graveyard and negate the activation, and then the same effect but to negate a monster effect as long as you also control Liu Zhan. So this guy is effectively 2 negates. Is a monster negate and a spell trap negate, but he's only a monster negate if you have this guy on field. Very powerful card. We run him at 2 because we don't want to really open our only one. As part of the combo line, you really need to make sure you have at least one in deck, but he is decent to summon at the start, throw down with one of the spell traps and get a negate on board very early in your combo. The next one I'm going to look at is Guan Yu, because he's also a starter essentially. If only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from hand. Your opponents cannot target Ancient Warriors monsters you control with card effects. Neat little bonus. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can target one monster your opponent controls and destroy it. It's Pancratops at home. This guy is a starter. He baits interruption, he baits negation, and very crucially, that summon effect is only a soft once per turn.
Hi there folks, it's me, Jerry. I meant to say that it's not even once per turn, which is what I go on and talk about, so I don't know why I said soft here, but either way, Guan Yu, not a once per turn, you can just keep doing it. Back to the video. So you can have multiple Guan Yus in your hand and set them off if they get destroyed one at a time. You can just end a conga line of Guan Yus. Even funnier than that, if he gets ashed or negated in hand, you can just activate him again. Very funny. It baits out a lot of negation because people can't be bothered to read. We'll have a look at the singletons now. These are our kind of higher level monsters, usually a bit harder to summon, but with some more powerful effects. We've got one Zhang Yuan. This one's a bit contentious. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that this is kept, but it does come up from time to time. All other Ancient Warriors monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. This guy's essentially a hand trap, battle trap. You can only use each of these following effects once per turn. At the start of the damage step, when your Ancient Warriors monster battles an opponent's face-up monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, that opponent's monster loses 1,000 attack. And if a card or cards your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one card your opponent controls, destroy it. So it's a bit of a win more card, but sometimes you do need that extra push to get through at the end. We'll look at these two as well because they fulfill similar roles. So Ancient Warriors Valiant Zhang Dai gains 300 attack for each monster your opponent controls during your turn only. And then the following effects are a hard once per turn. If you control 2 or more Ancient Warriors, you can special summon this card from your hand, so it's easy extension. And then if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can activate this effect. This card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase this turn. Again, a neat little bonus. The only reason we have him is because he's an extra name, he's an extra body. Sometimes you need something more than just Lu Bu. This is your usual search when you're sort of finishing up your combo lines. He cannot be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned from your hand by controlling the highest attack Ancient Warriors monster on the field, even if it's tied. And you can only special summon him once per turn this way. Once per turn during the main phase, you can destroy the one face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Also, you cannot activate monster effects the turn you activate this effect except Ancient Warriors monsters. Once per turn during the end phase, if your opponent controls a monster with the highest attack on the field, give control of this card to your opponent. They could not have printed more restrictions on this card if they've tried, but he is still very good, still a necessary component of the deck. He's just a quick effect fissure, which is pretty good and it's non-targeting. And he's a big body as well, 2800. Our last Ancient Warriors monster is Savage Donying. This guy connects the two halves of our sort of monster rosters. You've got the low level 4s, and then the higher levels are harder to summon out. This guy can be searched, and if you can get him onto the field, he then searches another level 7 or higher Ancient Warriors monster or any of the spell traps. So he will help you extend no matter what. While you control a level 7 or higher Ancient Warriors monster, your opponent must pay 400 life points to activate a card or effect, and that triggers on activation. So it's great. It can lock them out of the game if you can set it up. Donying plus Lu Feng plus DDL attacks for 7,600. So if this guy doesn't get kaiju'd off the board or anything, then you've automatically won anyway. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one level 7 or higher Ancient Warriors monster or one Ancient Warriors continuous spell trap from your deck to your hand. If a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard, you can target one card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, draw a card. Very nice little bonus there. Last two cards to look at, last few cards. 3 visits.
Feel the power of my magic!
This is a really important engine component. You really want to see this in your opener. During your main phase, if you normal or special summon an Ancient Warriors monster, you can target one of those monsters, add one Ancient Warriors monster with a different name from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent from the spell or trap card zone to the graveyard, you can special summon one Ancient Warriors monster from your hand, and then it has a stupid send itself to the graveyard after the second standby phase after activation effect that never really comes up because your games aren't going to last that long. Then we have our second continuous spell trap. We're running at 3. You could probably cut one of these. During your main phase, you could special summon one Ancient Warriors monster from your hand, and if you do take damage to its level times 100, you can send this face-up spell card from the spell or trap card zone to the graveyard, and then target an Ancient Warriors monster on the field. Change it to any attribute, then if you targeted an opponent's monster, you can take control of it. And then both of those are only hard once per turn. So yeah, both of these are just engine sort of, they keep the cogs whirring. And then the last 2 cards of engine are Ancient Warriors Oath Double Dragon Lords, a fantastic boss monster. Don't be fooled by the 1100 attack stat. Gets boosted by 500 anyway, as will most of your other monsters on the field. It takes 2 Beast Warrior monsters, including a Wind Ancient Warriors monster, so that is a bit frustrating sometimes. You might get locked into just waters and you can't find your way, though the attribute changing effect of Deception and Betrayal can sometimes fish you out of that and get you to DDL anyway. Each of these following effects is once per turn. When it's link summoned, you can add an Ancient Warriors card from your deck to your hand, which is great, any single card in the roster. And then quick effect, you can send a card from your hand or field to the graveyard, target one face-up card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Excellent bounce, and it can send itself for the cost there as well, which is really good because it can dodge things like Impermanent Effect Failure and just on-field negation. A couple of extra cards in the extra deck that are just kind of free slots. We have Gagaga Cowboy for the extra burn effect, Tornado Dragon because getting rid of back row in this deck is really tough, Baguska mainly as a easy climb into Zeus, because sometimes you want something that can be unaffected to attack and then head into Zeus. But more often than not, it's actually Typhon that comes up over Zeus, and it is like sort of skill drain effect is very handy against certain decks. We have a Nightmare Phoenix as well for dealing with back row, and then the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World to deal with towers. So with that, let's get into some games.
Can anybody provide me with a decent challenge?
Okay, so our first match here is up against Yubel. Of course, we've chosen going second here, and this game really highlights the power of Guan Yun specifically, and how much pressure you can keep putting on an opponent. Now, starting off this game, we immediately have Phantom of Yubel summoned on us. I decided to hold the Maxi for turn 2, because I know it's just going to get negated, and I'd rather force out the negation in the second turn. Or maybe it will resolve and we'll get to draw into some powerful card. So they managed to get Nightmare Pain on field early on, which is a pain for us because we do want to be going for the battle phase, so we'll have to make sure that they don't have any Yubels on the field by the end of, the start of our battle phase next turn. They pick up a spare Nightmare Pain for some reason, and then they start linking into their Unchained half of the deck. Now, Unchained is again a pain for us. It's extra points of interaction that we have to deal with. A lot of recursion from the graveyard, which means our pops don't necessarily always stick, so we want to be trying to make sure that we interact with them in a very smart way once they're done setting up. They're going to keep comboing off here. They managed to summon out Shalvara and get a Yubel back in hand. They're going to link into Unchained Soul of Rage, so now they have that your Lord of Yama in the graveyard, and they've set the trap Escape of the Unchained, which of course is a pop on their turn. So they're going to end with Verte as well, so not just dealing with Yubel and Unchained, but also Dragoon. And that just about ends their turn, so we've got a lot of points of negation and interaction to get through here. Monster Negate on Phantom of Yubel, we have the Omni Negate and Destroy on Dark Dragoon, also can't be targeted with card effects and can't be destroyed by card effects, and then of course the quick effect Link Summon, which tributes away your own monster of Unchained Soul of Rage. Plus we know he has the back row, and if he manages to survive to the battle phase with a Yubel on field, then Nightmare Pain is going to be a real headache. So what can we do about this? We've got a fantastic hand here, couldn't have asked for a better one. Let's see. So we draw triple tack. Again, unbelievable draw there. Now at this point I want to explain how I'm playing this. We are trying to fish for triple track onto Dragoon. If we can steal the Dragoon after he negates, then we've got it in the bag. We can just pop and go to battle and do all sorts of damage and link it away at the end. But unfortunately, our opponent is smart and he saves the Dragoon negate for the last possible moment, so we do end up having to take a different route. Phantom of Yubel immediately negates the Guan Yun, and they're going to use that to bin the Yubel and special summon out something, or bin the Spirit and special summon out a Yubel. Of course, we can Max C here, which is great, and they choose not to negate this, which proves to be a bit of a mistake on their part because we draw into Ultimate Slayer. We can then activate Guan Yun again, not a once per turn. Hilarious. We force out the back row by targeting the Unchained Soul of Rage, and he decides to pop our Guan Yun. No big deal. We've got a second one in hand. So we'll let him do his thing. he resolves a couple of graveyard effects from the Unchained side of his deck. And what does he end up doing? He gets a Unchained Soul of Rage back out. Funnily enough, on Maxi, we draw yet another Guan Yun, so more points of pressure here. You get to see just how stupid this card can be. So we, again, have to watch out for this quick effect that will link summon. But we have dropped it, so I feel like we're going to avoid that soon. Guan Yun comes down. I decide to try and summon Guan Yun just to force out any sort of interaction, and then I say, okay, well, he's not doing anything here. We go Ultimate Slayer, targeting the Unchained Soul of Rage, sending Ferrigite to get a recycle in hand, and then we chain Droplet, sending both of these cards. We don't need them on field. We actually want to open the floor up for our last Guan Yun summon, because that's what's going to turn on our engine with 3 visits in hand. So we have to use this Droplet. Unfortunately, to negate the Dragoon, we're not going to be able to steal it and you know, pop all our opponent's cards with it, but at least now we can play for anything. That's all of their points of interaction done and dusted, besides that one set card, which is unknown. We search an Ash, we put back the Ash because we don't need it. Out comes the 3 visits and Guan Yun, and now we can head off to the races. So we've drawn Sun Mu, going to summon that, search for Don Ying, sending the 3 visits, and that allows us to immediately summon out the Don Ying, which will search yet another. Nibiru simply does not exist. That one last card in hand is something else. We're hoping that this is an Imperm, or rather Corbeil, something face down. Doesn't matter. We bounce the Yubel with the Sun Mu effect, because that resolves on Don Ying's effect, and that allows us to punch through, ignoring Nightmare Pain and getting in for lethal. Damn. We're up against a Flame Swordsman deck, so nothing too tough for us to deal with, hopefully. They're going to start by summoning out Fighting Flame Swordsman. That's going to add Flame Swords Realm, and then they activate that. Also equipping now Infernoble Arms Durandal to their Fighting Flame Swordsman, which then is going to pop itself and allow for a summon. We're going to get the search of Flame Swords Realm. I'm going to chain Maxi here in response to the special summon. So they summon out the Flame Swordsman here, and then as I add off my first Maxi draw, they immediately draw a Lockbird. So that is it for my draws for the turn, but of course that's going to restrict them perhaps a little bit too. Down comes Isolde, the 2 ladies, but of course playing around their own drawn Lockbird. They're just milling stuff and summoning from the deck directly, so it's quite a nice pick in this deck. They send a bunch of equipped spells, of course, that gets added to hand. Infernoble Knight Ogier sent out, and that will do some more stuff with equips. We've got Infernoble Knight Gearfried, or sorry, Turpin comes out there, and then we go into Artorigus, King of the Noble Knights. That gets equipped with another pair from the grave, and then they add back the Gearfried to hand, pop the Joyos, and then they can banish that to special summon the Gearfried out, and they decide to link off both of those pieces of material for a Promethean Princess, summoning back the Flame Swordsman, and then equipping the Infernoble Knight Ogier to the Gearfried. Now, interestingly, we've drawn a lot of duplicates here. Ultimate Slayer is not a hard once per turn, though, so this will come in very handy. We start off by sending our Ferrigite, and that will bounce back the Promethean Princess. We get to cycle out one of our triple attacks so that we keep hold of the droplet that we drew. We're going to also use that second one just to send Garura. This is more of an extension thing. We're really not worried about the Flame Swordsman itself here, but just being able to draw an extra card off Garura is very nice. And in fact, it fiends out a negate from their Gearfried, so that's not too bad. We've still got plenty of options in hand. We're going to start with this Guan Yun, the non-once per turn special summon from hand, and then of course it's outnumbered by its opponents, so we can pop their Flame Swordsman very easily. We use Tenki to search Sun Mu. This grabs us a Lu Feng to hand. No reason to go through the Don Ying line here. Of course, we don't even have a way of summoning him, and then we use our triple attack to take control of the Immortal Venus Gearfried, and that's an easy cleanup under Nibiru. So that's a little taste of how well the deck can kill in one turn. But what happens when you don't quite make it? Well, this is a fantastic duel. Does make its way past turn 2, and we get to see just how much gas this deck can really have when it's pushed to the limit. Now we're up against what looks like something including Horus and the White Forest cards as well. And we're just going to let our opponent do their setup. I'll speed on through this. Setting the Imseti on field and getting hold of a lot of the White Forest monsters, synchroing into Arcelia, just doing all of this stuff. I don't understand White Forest quite so much. I just let them do their thing and hope for the best. By the time they get to the end of this combo, though, we do have a lot of problems, a lot of things to interact with. They get the Barone on field to start off with, Crimson Dragon as well, and that goes into a Bestial Disparter, interestingly, for the first for their second big dude, bringing out a couple more monsters with the King Sarcophagus, of course, reborning the Horus monsters, and then they go for Zombie Vampire. They now have full knowledge of what they're up against if they know Ancient Warriors. One of the best things about Zombie Vampire, quite honestly, if you ask me. They get Cypher Lord Omega here, and this is horrific for me. They are able to loop this with Dispatter, and I'm very fortunate that they actually hit both my Guan Yun in this case. So, unlike the last duel, we're going to be trying to break through this without any help from Guan Yun. Ultimate Slayer sending Wind Pegasus at Ignista to immediately shuffle back the Barone de Fleur, and then we can try and clear the way for Liu Jian. Sending our Zhuge Kong, because we're not going to be able to use that, and that meets Bestial Disparter. Now we really need some good draws here of Triple Tactics talent, and thankfully that's exactly what we get. We draw into both Tenki and Lu Feng. The Tenki is going to be useful here, searches us a Sun Mu, but of course we can't summon it, we've already used our normal, so we go straight into Lu Feng, pop the Disparter, and now how do we get through this? You ask me, we go straight into DDL. That searches out our second continuous spell card, Deception Betrayal. This is going to buy us an extra summon here. Gets us able to special summon out Sun Mu, and then we can send it, because we still want that attack boost, funnily enough, from Tenki. I don't think I did the maths properly here. I thought it might make a difference. We're actually going to search the Battle Trap of Zhang Yuan, because we want to be able to pop that King Sarcophagus and deny our opponent some of their recursion. Zhang Yuan doesn't really do enough on field, so I decide that at this point it's a decent idea to go into Typhon, just to get that kind of plus 3000 attack skill drain effect on field. We did see them search Suliek during the course of their combo, so I do know that I need to try and keep them off Kaleido Heart and other such things. They decide to go straight to the battle phase there with the Cypher Lord Omega, and unfortunately for them, I'm able to bounce it back. So we do manage to make it past a battle phase, but our opponent really does pop up right here as they somehow drew the Wraith Soul. Just unbelievable luck. That turns on the Kashtira half of their deck enormously. They're able to do all the shuffling, all the summoning they want to, and it's going to take a little while. They get the Salvation banished to search for Emerald Tortoise and the Wolves of the Imperial Tomb, which means again they can start reborning all of their Horus monsters. So they just go a bit nuts here with summoning another bunch of monsters. At the end of this, we've got another massive board to break, which is horrific for us. They go straight into Time Thief Redoer. Of course, this is just a mechanism by which to send Shirin and Havnis and get those to trigger. Kaleido Heart comes out, and they use that to bounce our DDL back to the deck. They're adding a King Sarcophagus to hand now, getting through some of their White Forest line. Again, this is just ways of spamming the field with bodies. Interestingly here, they decide to go into Appaloosa, but then of course they have the recursion available through King Sark to be able to move those bodies back on. Now, if you ask me, perhaps they run out of time because they could have added another negate or something to this, but maybe they're happy enough to just sit on the Horus line here. The main problem here, of course, is, well, Time Thief Redoer isn't going to do much because we don't run any traps, so he's not going to find anything off the top of our deck. We'll just let him do that search. He does find a Maxi. Appaloosa is the main problem here. So I decided to flip Typhon in order to deny the initial negate of Appaloosa. This means that they are then forced to use their Snow in the Grave to summon and flip the Typhon back down, turning their Appaloosa back on. We just about have enough points of interaction here to make a difference. We only have to deal 1,500 damage here. So we decide to first of all search and then summon Liu Jian, activate the bounce effect of Sun Mu, which does not go through because of the negate. We're going to then use Liu Jian's effect, sending the face down Typhon to try and summon from deck. Again, that eats a negate. We're just trying to get enough lethal here. That's the only attack position monster on the field that we could potentially get over. Link into DDL, try that summon, or rather the search. That gets negated, and now at this point we're very close to lethal, but we need to get this DDL off board to turn on Guan Yu. And just so we, just as luck would have it, you can do that with DDL. You can send it to the grave. We actually target the Time Thief Redoer here rather than the Appaloosa, just because I know that Guan Yu, despite being negated here by Appaloosa, is still going to be able to resolve a second time because it's not hard once per turn. And I just wanted to get rid of the Time Thief because I was so done with Tearlaments, I thought they might have some stuff engraved to do anything with. Unfortunately for them, it's just Keldo, so they can shuffle back some monsters fairly meaninglessly, and Guan Yin gets in for lethal. What a game that was. So hopefully after those games you can see just what this deck is about. It's fast, it's furious, it is relentless, it doesn't always have the gas to go through, but pretty much every card being some form of board breaker is really fun to play with, particularly when you're always up against like varied board states. It's a great game to be playing when you're looking at every single piece of interaction your opponent has. It's not a brainless activity. You really do have to think about how your cards are going to interact with your opponent, know a little bit about their decks, at least to know where the recursion is and what the threats are lurking in the hand and in the extra deck. So yeah, it's a really fun deck to play with. We'll run through a couple of the pros and cons here. So the main pro is we're in Master Duel, and this is best of ones. So being able to always win the coin flip and go second is a massive advantage. You'll know this if you played Tenpai, but it really is satisfying to go into games knowing that you're just drawing or going second hand. You don't need to worry about building for going first. Another pro of this deck is that it's very flexible. You know, there's a lot of slots here that have to be engine. You don't have a ton of space, but the space that is there can be virtually anything. I'm running an Ultimate Slayer lineup here. You could choose to run consistency tools like pots and other things. You could try for Book of Eclipse. You could go with a continuous spell heavy lineup that relies on Zhougong a little bit more, with things like Swords of Concealing Light. You can run Kaijus. Kaijus play very nicely in this deck because you're able to, first of all, tribute your opponent's monsters and then possibly bounce them back to your own hand so that you can tribute again using the Sun Mu bounces. It also doesn't lock you out of Lu Feng's effect because it's not an effect activation, it's simply a special summon. That point about flexibility extends to the extra deck here. I'm running an Ultimate Slayer lineup of cards because you really only have two absolutely necessary slots here, and that is 2 DDL. You can be running a third, but I like having a little bit of utility. All of these are just tech picks. Every single other pick in the extra deck is a tech pick, so you really don't have to do much. It also means that this is, besides the staples, a very cheap deck. Look, we have 2 URs that are necessary, maybe the third is our Lu Feng, and then every other card in this archetype is SR or below. You'd of course want a decent lineup of UR cards that are board breakers, but most of these are staples anyway, so they're good to spend the UR dust on. Maybe the one kind of contentious one is getting a full set of Ultimate Slayer, but I very much like having that. And you know, a lot of these extra deck cards as well are seen in quite a lot of other decks too. And now on to the cons. The biggest con about this deck is the lack of recursion. You have no way of recovering monsters once they go into grave. Once they're there, they're gone. You could be running Daigusto Emerald, I suppose, but generally you need to manage the resources in hand that you have with perfect decision making. If anything gets sent to the grave that isn't meant to be there, you may find yourself a card short for discards and so forth. Another con would be the reliance on continuous spells. So often, a ghost spell will just end your turn. Something that destroys a continuous spell will completely eat up your engine. You have no way of extending past just the first normal summon. So that can be a real problem sometimes. These cards have to remain on field in order to resolve, so anything that quick effect bounces or quick effect destroys can completely destroy you. And then last but not least is the lack of any one card combo. You could argue that Sun Mu is sort of a one card combo. You can send any card to then find Zhuge Kong, that gets summoned to the field, then you can link into DDL, search Lu Feng, and then you've got something of a decent board. You've found a bounce on the way with Sun Mu, you've got a pop with Lu Feng, and you've got a bounce with DDL. It's alright, but it's not lethal is the issue. You really do need that second card, that extra special summon, or the Don Ying, or the 3 visits to be in your hand at the start of that combo. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle to put up lethal against most boards. Don't get me wrong though, sometimes it is enough to clear a board, deal 5,000 or so with DDL and Lu Feng, sit on those 2 monsters. They are great control tools, and just hope that you can win turn 4. All in all, this is just an excellently fun deck. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I've been playing it for a good couple of years now, and I haven't tired of it, which I can't say the same for Tenpai. So, you know, get on this if you really enjoy that kind of style of play where it is blind seconding and you're looking to just outpunch your opponent, but with a little bit more thinking involved. And it's, you know, a really cheap way to do so as well. You don't need to spend $1 billion on Raid Raptor decks or whatever. This is mostly staple going second cards and then very cheap engine cards. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I do love just, you know, big number go up and summoning a bunch of really strong guys from the main deck. It's a really nice sort of breath of fresh air when you're used to playing a card game which relies so much on all of the power being kind of concentrated in the extra deck or in the spell cards or what have you. Just having all these guys, you know, it really fits the theme of the Ancient Warriors, the Three Kingdoms era of China, when these guys were, you know, effectively like the superheroes of the time. So they are the focal point of the deck, and they are just excellent fun to play with. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. This is the first time I've done a Yu-Gi-Oh video on this channel ever, which is very surprising considering how much I have played it and how I've occasionally streamed it as well over the past few years. But I just felt that there wasn't much out there about Ancient Warriors as a deck on YouTube or anywhere, and I play a lot of this and Crystal Beasts, but there's a lot out there about Crystal Beasts, so I thought Ancient Warriors deserved a little bit of attention. If you're here because you're expecting a finals video or a Rainbow Six video, or perhaps the D&D video that I said I would make a few weeks ago, those are on the way, don't you worry. I'm just in a little bit of nice, comfortable downtime at the moment at the start of the year. In case anyone's wondering, I teach most of the time, so it being the school holidays has given me a little bit of extra time to do these things, and I've got a little goal for myself to make some videos just every day or two in that downtime. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, then just give it a like and drop a comment to say what you might want to see in the future, or any of your feedback for this deck profile. There's so many different ways to go about playing Ancient Warriors. It's a really fun deck, and I hope this has turned you onto it in some way. If you don't play Yu-Gi-Oh at all, then I hope that this has been an interesting sort of dive into the world of it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Lord Ming-Hu, bad news! We're in trouble!
Don't you dare disturb my meal!